All right, we're going with no notes for this video, which is why the first thing I'm gonna talk about is this dumbass Mike Gorman. No offense, I don't know you personally, but if y'all was watching the Bally broadcast, it's that old ass Celtics announcer they keep talking about, and they're once again showing him on the TV. They doing the fans are doing a standing ovation. Of course, the fans like him because he's white. Those racist ass Celtics fans chanting "F the Miami Heat" at the end of the game. Yeah, real classy Celtics fan. I hate everything about that Celtics team. Everything from the roster to the front office to the fans. And don't tell me they not racist because their own players are saying that they racist. Go look up Jaylen Brown, racist Celtics fans. He'll be the first one to tell you. And of course, the only black player that the Celtics like or cheer the loudest for has the last name of White, with Derek White's bum ass too. Probably the guy that I hate the most. But anyways, there's 41 seconds in this Heat game here. That's what I'm looking down at. I figured I'd get a head start on the recording because there's a lot of content that needs to be done and things that need to be talked about. I don't know if that's today or definitely in the days to come. After I get this video out, I might be on the Basement Sports Network going live over there just to share my thoughts. So make sure y'all go hop over there and check out the stream if we're still live or the replay afterwards. But yeah. Like I said, no notes for this video. I just kind of want to think about what angle I want to take for this because this was an frustrating game, season. I'm still, it's going to take some time to sort of put this into perspective. And I'm sure there'll be a ton of things that are omitted or that I forget to talk about. But I think the thing that sucks the most, right, is I feel like you had your chance to compete completely robbed from you, but with the injuries, right? But at the same time, I don't like saying that because then that kind of sounds like I'm going to the mindset where, oh, if only you were healthy. But this is year 5 of this core. They have never been healthy going back to that 2021 bubble when Bam and Goran got hurt. Now, I know Goran's not here no more, but still, for whatever reason, this core can never get healthy. And I say that. So you might say, oh, I'm saying, oh, let's blow up the whole thing. But then again, there's no guarantee that the guys that you bring in are going to stay healthy either. So injuries are a really weird and tough thing. As the game officially ends here, you got Bam dapping up the other team. I just hope it's okay for, to show respect to the other team. Actually, I like when the guys do that. And I'm already getting a comment from some dumbass Celtics fan saying great prediction on and that notification popped up in an awkward spot for what my lock screen is of my beautiful girlfriend. It's not worth it. Anyways, Celtics fans trolling me, whatever. I deserved it. I talked a lot of shit. Who cares? What was I saying now? Injuries are a weird thing because you could say a lot of it is fluky, but then if it's the same guys that it's kind of happening to, like Tyler Hero to be specific, then is it fluky? I don't know. But I think this is obviously I'll say it's a frustrating season because you played very mediocre all year, but you still had that hope in the back of your head that, hey, the Heat team just did it last year. Maybe they can do it this year again. And you didn't have the chance. So you waited all season to get the chance and you had it just stolen away from you. And even going back to the summer when the Heat lost that on Dame, I wanted nothing more than to go farther than the Milwaukee Bucks and to beat their ass. Get a chance to play the Celtics again and beat their ass too. And you didn't even have the chance all year even. People hating on Jimmy Butler, Heat fans doubting him. And I'm saying wait to the playoffs. I believe in Jimmy Butler. I am ride or die with Jimmy. Didn't even have the chance. I could take losing, but when you don't even have the chance, that's the frustrating part. But here's the thing again. It's not even so much injuries. Because if they would have tried harder in the regular season, Jimmy Butler specifically, they wouldn't have been in the play-in. They wouldn't have gotten Jimmy Butler hurt. So a lot of this all relies on them too. I've talked a lot this season about the duality of being a Heat fan, right? Because you don't like the roster and the regular season product, but at the same time, in the last 5 years or 4 years, I guess, they've gone farther in the playoffs than almost all the other contenders in the East, right? They've had more success than Boston. They've had more success than Milwaukee. So who am I to be jealous of those teams when they're sent home every year and the Miami Heat are still going on in the playoffs, But at the same time, we see the product on the court. We see they don't have a point guard. We see they don't have no size. And then you get killed in the first round like you do today. But then again, you weren't healthy. So I don't know what to blame it on. I don't know whose fault it is. You know, I certainly think, and I made a video, a couple months ago about who's to blame for the Heat struggle this season. And I gave majority, over 50% of the blame to the front office. They put the Heat in this position, right? But it's unfortunate, right? Because there's a lots of moves or lack thereof that went wrong to get you into this position where I sort of feel like, is the window of winning with Jimmy closed? I don't know. But I know he's getting older. I know he couldn't try as hard for majority of the regular season this year. So I don't know. I mean, we'll do some offseason talk this video, and of course, a ton of that to come. I think maybe the best way to do that is go through the box score today of what we saw and kind of speak a little bit about everyone. And we'll do that too. But I guess how I will keep myself sane after all this frustrating series and season as a whole, and just every time I close my eyes, seeing Derek White for three, bang, every time. I think what I will do to keep myself sane is just say the bill was due. You've had a lot of success as a Heat fan in Jimmy's tenure. And at some point, you're going to have a bad ending to the season. Obviously, last year was bad. The year before was bad, but you had sustained playoff runs. There's levels to this. Those were not as bad an ending as this. So essentially, the bill was due. You beat the Celtics, 2 out of the last 3 times you played them in the playoffs. Eventually, you was going to lose to them again. And it's a cycle of life, and hopefully that means that next time it's our turn to win. That's kind of the mindset that I'm going to try to have to keep myself sane. Now, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to take that Giannis approach and say that there's no such thing as failure. It's only steps to success, because that, I think, is a loser mentality. That's why just a minute ago when I said the Heat have had success, I put it into quotation marks, because success is relative, you could say. But overall, I would define this season as a failure, and I would define every single season that Jimmy Butler has been here as a failure. Because to me, with the expectations that this franchise has, is to win a championship. And if the goal is to win a championship and you fall short of the goal, then that by definition is a failure. So it really bothers me when you get all these people saying, you shouldn't be mad. They've been successful. They've gone farther than the other teams. I don't care. I don't care what these other teams are doing. The goal set by the front office, set by Spoelstra, set by Pat Riley, set by Jimmy Butler himself, by his own words, multiple times a year, every single year, the goal that he sets, the expectations that they set for themselves is a championship. And if they are setting those expectations for themselves, who am I to oppose that? And they have not achieved that goal. Therefore, it has been a failure. And when Giannis said that last year, 2 years ago, whatever, that there's no such thing as failure, that's a loser mentality. And that's why he will never win another NBA championship. And the only one that he won was in that fluke season where all the best teams had like a 7-week off season. And there's a reason he hasn't sniffed close to the NBA Finals since then, because he's a loser with a loser mentality, just like Bradley Beal, another bum. Glad the Heat didn't get him. That is one thing I was right about. I did not want Bradley Beal. I did want Kristaps Porzingis. But I guess the bill was due with him too. He was obviously hurt today, and the Heat did not have Jaime Jaquez, so I guess that was another injury there. So I think that's kind of where I stand as far as how I'm feeling and my mindset going forward. Let's get into this box score and just kind of talk about everything. 'Cause there's nothing to talk about the game. I mean, it was 11-11, and then Tyler Hero was getting torched, and then before you knew it, you were down 30. Never really looked back. Okay, so we'll start with Caleb Martin. He finished with 10 points today. Who cares? That's a big name when it comes to offseason talk, because obviously he's a guy that can opt out. I know he has a player option on his contract. Let's go ahead and look what that contract is here. So Caleb Martin is on the last year of his deal going into next season. Where's the Spotrac? Caleb Martin contract. I always look up Spotrac if you guys ever want to look up players' contracts. So next year is, like I said, player option from Caleb, and it is for $7.1 million. Now, he'll be 29 years old, So you think he'd want to opt out and maybe sign a 4-year deal, which would put him up to, 33? And then that would, in theory, allow him to get another deal after that. Now, a year ago, right, at the end of last season, we assumed the Heat could not afford Caleb Martin because he was going to opt out and sign with a team who was going to pay him a lot more. But after this playoff run, Caleb was not great. Now, I know he had 18 points last game, 10 today. A lot of that was in garbage time. But really, he just had the great game, too, and was pretty terrible outside of that. And on the season as a whole, I wanted to pull up his numbers here. 10 points per game on 43% shooting, 35% from three. So nothing special, really. Obviously, he was hurt for portions, too. Only played 64 games this year. But he really didn't take that jump that I hoped for. I guess I was fooled after seeing the ECF Caleb Martin last year. He didn't take that jump. Now, that being said, is he worth more than $7 million a year? Yeah, sure. Relative to what these other guys are getting paid. So I still do think he opts out and wants his money. And I guess at this point, I hope the Heat don't pay him. You're gonna have to, obviously, where I sit at is you're gonna have to have some sort of major revamp of this roster. And I think that's one of the easiest places to look. Now, a lot of people are going to be disappointed that, hey, you didn't trade him at the deadline to get some additional assets. I was okay with that because, one, I think Caleb would have went for like a second-round pick, maybe 2 seconds. I don't think those 2 second-round picks are worth the chance that he could replicate last year's run and help this team go, on a deep playoff run. Now, obviously, in hindsight, knowing that they did get their ass kicked in round one and knowing that you didn't have Jimmy Butler, well, yeah, I wish they would have traded Caleb in hindsight. But at the time, I was okay with that. And still on top of that, I still think that you might be able to do a sign-in trade with Caleb Martin and still get an asset in return, kind of like the Heat did with Max Strus, where they still got a second-round pick. And the reason I think that may be likely is because I think Caleb is a guy that contenders might want as sort of a guy that could put them over the top because he has playoff experience and he's sort of that 3-and-D guy that, again, could be like that auxiliary piece to really notch a contender's chances, right? And most of those teams are over the salary cap, meaning they couldn't afford them. So maybe it'd be some sort of sign and trade, which is why maybe you still get some assets either way. But I do think this was Caleb Martin's last game in a Heat jersey if I had to put money on it. Nikola Jovic, 8.7 rebounds today, 27 minutes. A lot of that, I guess, was in that garbage time too late in the fourth quarter. Here's the thing with Jovic, right? People have started to talk about him over the last 2 months that he is God's greatest thing to basketball, right? And I want to temper expectations because when you put these expectations on a guy and he doesn't live up to them, that's when you start thinking that he's ass. That's kind of like what we saw with Tyler Hero, right? So I want to temper expectations. Now, I will say he's 20 years old, and anytime you have a young 6'10 guy with that skill set where you could dribble and shoot and pass and all that stuff, yeah, he looks like a guy that maybe has the potential to be the next Giannis because the numbers are comparable. 20-year-old Giannis and 20-year-old Jovic, the numbers are comparable. Now, I know you could do that with a lot of guys, but still, you have that sliver of hope that maybe Jovic could be a superstar. And if not a superstar, maybe a really good player in this league for a long time, which I think he will be. But it's very clear by Jovic's inconsistent minutes, even once being a starter in the regular season, and going into the playoffs where he's only been, you have a lot of games, he's only getting 15 minutes. So it's very clear to me based off his minutes of play that he's not a guy that can be trusted, as a full-time rotation piece right now. And for that reason, if there's another asset out there, I am willing to let go of Nikola Jovic. Now, again, I'm going to talk about which guys I'm willing to let go and stuff like that, but it all comes down to who's available, right? Because would I trade Jovic for Dorian Finney-Smith? No. Would I trade Jovic for Donovan Mitchell? Yes. So it's all relative. But my overall, and again, we'll make a bunch of videos about this, but my overall point is do not fall in love with Nikola Jovic because right now as a Heat fan, nobody should be untouchable for you on this team. Nobody. If you want to say Jimmy and Bam, okay, I get that. But outside of those two guys, you should not be attached to a single person because I love Nikola Jovic and Jaime Jaquez as much as the next guy. But you got to make your mind up. Are you trying to win right now or no? I don't think you can half-ass it and do this hybrid rebuild/win now team. I don't think that works. And if you want to trade Jimmy and keep the young guys, okay, that's your route there. I personally still want to win in the Jimmy window. I think he has another year or two left, and I don't think players like Jimmy Butler fall off a tree. So that being said, I'm okay trading Nikola Jovic and Jaime Jaquez as much as I love those guys. And if we're talking bright spots this season, sure. Those are two guys that have been bright spots. Jaime Jaquez was way better than I think anyone could have expected as a rookie. And Nikola Jovic's jump from mid-season playing in the G League to right now being a starter on a playoff team, yes, that is incredible. And if he could jump that much in the middle of a season, well, imagine how much he'll jump in an off season. So it is possible Jovic could be coming to next year 10 times the player he is. In fact, I expect him to be much better. But I wouldn't hold that up from allowing the Heat to get someone who much better, who could win now. Bam Adebayo, I mean, shout out to him for playing his absolute ass off all series, all season, really. A lot of people were giving him his flowers tonight. I don't want to sit here and act like he had a good game tonight. 23 points on 26 shots. And if I'm going to give Tyler Hero crap for that, I'm going to give Bam the same crap. The only difference is Bam had 21 points in the first half. Only finished with 23 points overall. So he obviously only scored 2 points in the second half. And you know how they got the saying lipstick on a pig where you make your numbers look better, but it's like irrelevant? Bam did the opposite. He made his numbers look way worse, and it was irrelevant. So I'm willing to go a little bit lighter on Bam just because, you know, he finished, what did he finish shooting? 10 to 26? I feel like before that he was probably, like 10 of 19, you know, something a lot better. And he had just a terrible second half. But again, the game was already a blowout. So he wasn't great tonight as a whole, but we know that he is one of the positives on this team. And I absolutely think that he's a guy you can build around, you know, not as the guy, not as the primary scorer, but he is the best defender in the league. Do not get it twisted. And I do not want to understate the importance of Bam Adebayo. He is the reason they can beat teams that have a Giannis, that have a Joel Embiid. He has limited Nikola Jokic. And I don't know if you can count more than 3 guys that could guard those players. I don't know. And having a guy that could do that is critical, just when it comes to the postseason specifically. And obviously, Bam's taking a big jump in his offensive game this year. Way more skilled from the post fade moves that he developed to the 3-point line that we saw the second half of the season. Very happy with Bam Adebayo, and I think he's another positive on this season just as a whole. DeLon Wright, 8 points tonight. Defense has been incredible. Absolute stud since the buyout. He's a guy, if on a minimum contract, I would love to bring back. Not much else to say. His impact is obvious. He's a great minimum player. You know, if you can bring him back instead of Josh Richardson or one of the two, I would like it. Especially if you're losing Caleb Martin, at least being able to keep DeLon Wright for his perimeter defense. It's always good to have at least one of those guys that you could throw out there if Jalen Brunson gets hot or a Tyrese Maxey, to have a guy that could just hound the other team's point guard. So I would really love to have DeLon Wright back. I'd say he's been another positive. Tyler Hero, he's the main story of the game, right? 15 points on 19 shots, 6 of 19. It's no secret how bad Tyler Hero's been this playoffs, right? And every game he's been bad, I said I'm not going to yell at him because I'm tired of doing that. He is what he is. He is a high-level role player, and when you take a role player and put him in a role that he's not meant to be in because of injuries, he's not going to perform well because that's not what he is. So I'm not going to sit here and, berate him for being terrible when he was put out of position. Now, for anyone that thought he was a star, well, you got to wake up because this is proof that he is not a star. He was terrible today. Absolutely awful. And he is the guy that I think most Heat fans are going to want to move on from this offseason. And again, I think they should too, because I think you need some sort of massive revamp, right? And it's hard because I don't know how many guys are available, but at the very least, if you don't have Tyler Hero next season, I think the team does look completely different as far as a basketball standpoint, because he is such a high usage player, takes the most shots on the team. If he's not out there on the court, we know that they're going to be a different basketball team. I mean, we've seen it a lot with him being, injured half the season, right? That's a whole other issue outside of the talent stuff. But if you can move on from him and bring in some really, really solid rotational pieces, that I think it'll give this team an entirely different look, which at the very least is something that we all know is needed. Now, people want to trade Tyler for a star. I think that opportunity is gone. right? He survived the Lillard allegations. He survived the Durant allegations. He survived the Spider allegations. And people think that, oh, the Heat just are so high on Tyler Hero, they don't want to trade him. That's not it. I don't think other teams want Tyler Hero. I think that's the problem. And if you're looking at him as being the main guy in a Donovan Mitchell trade, I'm sorry. That can't happen. And I'm not trying to make this too much of an off-season video. So, I mean, off the bench, you got Highsmith, Patty Mills, Duncan, and Kevin Love, and Thomas Bryant. Kevin Love said he wants to be back. I'd love to have him back. He's going to be 36 years old. I think there's a role for him on this team. Hayward Highsmith is another guy that I think was a free agent. Let me check on that too. Because he's a guy that, I like. I think there's another role for him as a defender again. Not Alex Highsmith. Especially, again, if you're losing Caleb Martin. But he's not a guy that I would overpay. And Hayward Highsmith right now is... Yeah, he's on the last year of his deal for $2 million. He'll be restricted free agent next season. So, yeah, I don't want to overpay for him. What that number is, I don't know. I'll have to think about it, but he's a guy that I would not overpay for. They could find the next Hayward Highsmith just like they do all the time, you know. And Duncan Robinson, he had such a great season, man. That's another really disappointing thing is watching him play this year, I said, wow, this is a guy that is going to make the Miami Heat better than they were last year because his improvement alone had that kind of impact on this team. And obviously the injuries hobbled him to a point where he couldn't perform. Only 2 points today for him. So, and somehow Thomas Bryant, 10 points in 12 minutes. He's the master of, lipstick on a pig, getting buckets in garbage time. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Obviously the guys that didn't play today that we got to talk about, Jimmy Butler. My stance is pretty firm on him. If you could get a phenomenal package, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, I don't know, something crazy like that, I'd consider it. If not, I want to keep Jimmy. I don't think guys like that fall off of trees. And I think if you can get the right guy to pair with him, if Mitchell's on the market, obviously that's the guy. Well, I'm sure I have a ton of videos about him, but if you could get him or Durant if he's available or LeBron, we got to see who's available, right? But if you can get them for Hero, Jaime, Jovic, and however many picks we have, and keep Jimmy, I think you could win with a big three of Jimmy, Bam, and insert star there. Even if it's a 2-year window, that's a window that I take. It's hard to get a guaranteed championship window, and I'll mortgage the entire future for one. And Terry Rozier too. And hindsight on that trade, I guess right now in hindsight it wasn't great because you gave up a first-round pick for a guy who couldn't contribute in the playoffs. But if he's here next year and plays well, then in hindsight, then maybe it was a good trade. Right now, I just think it's kind of TBD. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess before I wrap up the video, we all know, like I'm not saying anything mind-bending here, right? We know this team needs a major overhaul. Everyone who didn't agree last season definitely agrees now. You got Barry Jackson on Twitter, being pretty harsh, saying that they need to do stuff now, and he's a guy that is connected, with the team. So he knows it. I think the front office knows it. And it's easier said than done because we know changes are needed. But if no one's available, then what are you going to do? So that's what happens when the front office puts you in this position by making terrible moves throughout the years. Passing on Tyrese Maxey for Achua, which really set this franchise back and potentially cost them a chance at a championship in Jimmy Butler's window. Because obviously you see what Maxey's doing, 41 points last night. That was a mistake passing up on him. And then you compounded that mistake by getting Kyle Lowry, paying him a boatload of money, and then that hard capped the team from making any other improvements. So, hey, but make sure y'all subscribe and like the video because I have so many ideas for off-season content. We're going to get into the trades and the rumors. And I also have like a ton of ideas for some really creative stuff. Maybe some basketball IRL content or going into the courts and asking people Miami Heat trivia and just interacting with the public a little bit. I got all kinds of crazy ideas. So make sure y'all subscribe so you don't miss it. We on the grind to 5K subs. So I'm really hoping we can get there by the start of next season. And overall, I mean, it wasn't a fun year basketball-wise for the Heat, but it was a fun year with y'all. And the support, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, it means a lot. It does mean a lot. And we've had such great growth over this last year, starting with all the Damian Lillard stuff in the offseason to this point. So it's been fun hanging out with you guys. So we'll be doing some more live streams, I'm sure. And then tons of videos, so stay tuned. And until then, I'll see y'all very soon. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city, tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.